Alrighty, let's go with part 3B for this section. And I'll post these both up when I'm finished. So we're talking about the Columbine murderers, all right? They put that philosophy, that worldview into practice when they said, hey, Darwin said survival. By the way, they actually did it April 20th on Adolf Hitler's birthday. So communism, and I won't get into this because I had another blog about how communism basically, for it to be possible, one of the tenets is to make it devoid of God. And so this whole philosophy they lived out, and since they rejected God's reality, they found it easier to murder innocent people. So I'm not saying, once again, that Darwinian evolution causes these atrocities. Sin causes them. But what I'm saying is that Darwinian evolution provides the soil by which this evil seed can take root and bear bad fruit. By the way, side note, there's no such thing as a sincere atheist because the fool has said in his heart, the Bible teaches that the fool has said in his heart there is no God. The fool doesn't reject him or doesn't reject God in his mind because the existence of God is written on our very being. The fool rejects him in his heart because he doesn't want to submit to a God who is the ultimate authority over every life. And there are certain atheists that actually are honest enough to say that. And you know, I've heard some that just come out and say, and they're at least honest. They say, I don't want there to be God because that would mean I would have to submit to the authority, the ultimate authority of the heavens and the earth and over my life. And I agree. Although where I disagree is that I choose to submit to him, that I do accept that he is the creator of the universe and that he has revealed himself through Christ and his word. So once again, here it is again, how people are classified. The Bible does not use the word race when referring to different types of people. It uses ethnos. This is where we get the word ethnicity. This means nations and a multitude living together, a culture of people. Okay? So this is where you have, Asian Americans, African Americans, Caucasian Americans, Hispanic Americans, Vietnamese Americans, specifically Asians, etc. Fule means, that's a Greek word, that means kindred or relatives. All right? Look at Abraham, for example, the 12 tribes of Israel. That's a fule. That's a kindred. Laos means people groups. Laos. Glossa means language, group by language. So there are people who are grouped by language. All right? That's what the Bible uses. The Bible doesn't use the word race for different types of people. The second issue is besides racism is critical race theory. Now, critical race theory is a current ideology that postulates that America is inherently racist, that racism is in all institutions of America, and they coin it systematic racism, and that all white people are inherently racist. By the way, I have links on this blog if you want to look up sources for these particular ideas. Now, though I understand the rationale behind this ideology, I myself am an ethnic minority in this country. All right, I'm Puerto Rican American, in a general sense, Hispanic American, and so, if you've been an ethnic minority, you've most likely experienced some sort of, people who are making you feel like they're superior to you ethnically, and so I get the rationale behind this. All right, though I understand the rationale behind this ideology, it is not only a false ideology; it's actually very dangerous and destructive to everyone as well. Let me explain. For America to be inherently racist, we would have to ask ourselves what makes a nation a nation. So one major answer, if not the main one, the main answer to this lies in the laws which govern the particular nation. In our case, in America, we have a written constitution that all of our civic leaders are to uphold and all citizens should know thoroughly. But unfortunately, most Americans have never even read their own constitution, and most Americans do not know the whole story of our founding. And if they knew the whole story, their ideas would change. The problem is that we have an intellectually lazy society that is more influenced by 2 seconds of pseudo news, bad journalism, often coined fake news. I would just call it bad journalism, and it's really more influenced by the culture than good journalism. And this is how people are developing their worldview. Now, for the sake of time, let me explain something briefly. I want you to listen carefully to this. There's no article, section, or clause in the United States Constitution that supports the perpetuity of slavery. Not one. There's 7 articles, and there are sections within those articles, and there are clauses, and not one of them was or is instituted to actually perpetuate slavery. Matter of fact, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment actually started to finalize the ideals that are written in our civic DNA. It's just very briefly. If I would just encourage you to read the U.S. Constitution yourself, I would also encourage you to read your state constitution and just begin to study these things. Don't look at the news. You're going to be influenced one way or another badly, whether it's, let's keep going. Southern states could not, so there's nothing that supports the perpetuity of slavery. Southern states could not count their slaves as property for representation in the House of Representatives. The international slave trade to America would end in 1807, which, by the way, well, it actually ended internationally, actually. Well, I just said that. And southern states would still have to pay high tariffs on importing slaves. And at the ratifying conventions, the northern states abolished slavery immediately. These are just a few examples that are in or the result of our written constitution. Once again, most Americans are woefully ignorant of our ideals and our shared history. So I don't have a lot to time to get into this because there's really a lot of this. But I haven't even touched on the Northwest Ordinance. I haven't even touched on a lot of these things that were instituted early on at our founding, 1787, to eradicate slavery. So Thomas Jefferson said this, quote, "If a nation expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization, it expects what never was and will never be." In other words, if we want to be dumb in our society, you can't be dumb and free at the same time. And a lot of people don't get that. All right? A lot of people don't read deeply, and I'm not talking about junk. I'm talking about meaningful things that can help people understand their world and not only which they live in, but how do we get here? And he said it perfectly. If you want to be ignorant, if a person wants to be ignorant, fine, you can be ignorant willfully, but you can't be ignorant and free. He continues, he said, "The functionaries of every government have propensities to command at will the liberty and property of the constituents. There is no safe deposit for these but with the people themselves, nor can they be safe with them without information." There it is. I'm talking about good information, not bad information and lies. "Where the press is free and every man able to read, all is safe," unquote. One of the greatest reasons why our society is so corrupted and messed up is that most Americans are woefully ignorant of history and intellectually lazy. I mentioned that. And by the way, tyrannical governments, listen to this, tyrannical governments want their citizens to be stupid, inebriated, and dependent on them. That's what tyrannical governments want. They want them to be stupid, medicated, entertained, and they want them to be dependent on the government. Moreover, most people can tell you who won the Super Bowl or the NBA championship, who won America's Got Talent, who got voted off the island on Survivor, etc. But most Americans couldn't tell you the first 5 clauses of the First Amendment. The reader may ask, well, why are these clauses important? Well, because these clauses guarantee more freedoms than many, if not most, of the 260 nations of the world. We have taken liberty under the rule of law for granted in America, and if liberty is not preserved, we will not be able to participate in the blessing of liberty. The second accusation is particularly dangerous to the liberty of everyone, not just Caucasians. Could you imagine accusing individuals and or organizations without any hard evidence? Could you imagine attributing fault to people based on the accuser's perceived ideas? And yet, this is what is happening in America. Last time I checked, due process is not only a natural right, it is a constitutionally protected right. This legal provision posits that every individual is innocent until proven guilty. But to attribute an organization or individual as racist without any conspicuous behavior is actually advocating anarchy. In other words, If we start saying you're guilty because the society doesn't like you because you're white, you associate with conservatism or liberalism or whatever, and there is no due process given to someone, that is anarchy. And by the way, that is the strategy of Marxism. It's one of the tenets of Marxism. So that whole ordeal with Justice Kavanaugh when he was before the Senate and all of these trumped up charges that were, he was not even given due process. That's unpopular to say, but that's true. The last one is similar. For a person to say that all white people are inherently racist is to convey how much stupidity that person really has. People who say that are really, really, and I don't even like the word stupid. I don't think it's a good word. I don't think it's a bad word. I just don't think it's a good word. But sometimes I do use it. To say that all white people are racist, that's just or black people or Hispanic, that's just stupid. Why? Well, first of all, my wife is Caucasian. If she were a racist, quote unquote, why would she marry me, who's Hispanic? And as a matter of fact, every interethnic marriage between a Caucasian and another ethnic group disproves this obnoxious and obtuse claim. Let me say it again. Every interethnic marriage between a Caucasian and another ethnic group disproves this obnoxious and obtuse claim. All this is to circle back. This is accusation with this critical race that's going on. Now, all this circles back to the main, what does this have to do with education? All this circles back to the main message. Critical race theory is being taught and indoctrinated in the minds of K-12 students throughout America. And it is a false and destructive ideology. It all works together. Students are being taught to hate their own country, have an affinity for socialism and communism / Marxism, hate white people, to be classified as oppressor, reject absolute truth, determine your own norms regarding sexuality and gender, and the like. It all works together. This all works together. Because in our society, ultimately, we have jettisoned this idea of truth, absolute truth. And we have based it on at the heart of it is humanism. I can be my own God. Well, and civilization is incapable of surviving if a people group live by these bad ideologies. So what can you do? And I'm going to end with this. If your kids are in government schools, make sure you attend your school board meetings to ensure that you are advocating for your own children, what they are learning, and how they're being taught. Parents do not ask permission from the government schools to educate their own children. It is actually vice versa. Remember, ideas have consequences and bad ideas have victims. The ideas that your children and grandchildren are consuming will either serve to their edification or their destruction, and that falls on you and me as parents. Also, pay attention to the literature that your children are reading at school. Though many school districts deny that they are teaching critical race theory, many times it is a false claim. They're saying, yeah, we're not teaching, but they are. Trust me, I've been in education 23 years. I've learned a little bit. I've seen this. This was simply a quick overview for more in-depth understanding on the concept of racism. I recommend the book in the bibliography. So Ken Ham and Charles Ware, one is a Caucasian and one is African American. They wrote a book called One Race, One Blood. The subtitle is A Biblical Answer to Racism. The publisher is Master Books, and I highly recommend this book. It is outstanding. And I just wanted to give a short synopsis of this and to let you know that critical race theory and the teaching of implicit bias, quote unquote, and racism and attributing fault to people who have not given due process is horrible. And I would say that a person can claim to be a civilized person if they adhere to this. So I hope this blesses you. If you have any questions, you can text me. My cell number is 443-852-1077, 443-852-1077. My email is ibbyrios9@gmail, IBBYRIOS 9 the digit @gmail.com. And we'll see you soon.